So I'm going to get this going because I want to introduce you to the beautiful sister that is sitting beside me. I am so excited to be sitting down and chatting with this amazing, amazing woman. I read her credentials and I'm going to read because I want to get it all, because as she sent it to me, I was like, okay, this is impressive. This is impressive. So the woman who's sitting beside me is a best-selling author, and we will be talking about her book this evening. She's an award-winning public administrator. I was like, award-winning, that's worth a ooh, a ah, I don't know, that's impressive. Over 20 years experience. I know she doesn't look like she has 20 years experience, but she does. Over 20 years experience. And she has served as, check this out, acting city manager, assistant city manager, chief marketing officer, and director of human resources. I had to read that a few times because I was like, that is so serious. But she's also one of South Florida's most powerful and influential leaders. I had the privilege of meeting this beautiful sister when I traveled across the globe to Dubai. She ended up sitting right beside me. And I gotta tell you, I loved her enthusiasm, her passion, and she got a sense of humor. So please help me welcome Natasha Hampton. Hey, hon, how are you?
Hi there, how are you? Hello to everyone that's live right now. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you.
I gotta tell you, I've been going through the book, totally loving it. I'm gonna drop the title in a moment. If you saw the ad or the promotion, you know what it is. But I gotta tell you, my first thing I want to know is a little bit about you before we dive into the book, because when I was reading through your book, it said that you started as a single mom on welfare, and now you're one of the most top 50 influential leaders. How does that happen? Because I really wanted to highlight, because I want everybody to get the distance that you have traveled and the mindset that takes.
Yeah, so all glory to God, because I firmly believe that no matter the choices that we make, that oftentimes may take us off of our divine course, God is always in control, and He will make sure that His purpose for our lives is manifested. So glory to Him, and glory to God, and for keeping me in the right mind, and keeping me on the course. But also it was about making sure that I didn't stay stuck in the some of the choices that I made really early on, becoming a single mom, getting pregnant right before I graduated high school, and then sitting in that fear for a while. I sat in that fear for a long time, to the point where I endangered my son, who's now 30 years old and really, really well, and endangered myself because I chose to sit in that fear and not tell anybody for the entire 9 months of my pregnancy. So I had my son on a Saturday, and I called and told my parents the following Wednesday that I had a baby. And I kept that the entire time. And so that for me, not knowing then, but certainly now, that was my foundation. And that if I could survive that, I could survive anything. And no matter what came in my path, that the gifts that God had given me, I would be able to sustain and do well in whatever that was. And so I'm thankful for this opportunity as we talk about mindset, because it's all a matter in how we think, and regardless of the situations that we're in that moment, know that you're keeping strong mentally will get you to where you have to go.
As I listen to you, I'm of the belief that everything that comes into my life, I like to tell myself it's perfect, no
Yeah.
matter what it is. And it's here to grow me, make me stronger, prepare me for the next chapter. And it sounds like that's how you see it as well for yourself.
Absolutely. I certainly do now. I couldn't appreciate that then, of course. And oftentimes when we're in the midst of the mess, or whatever it is that we're in, we can't appreciate that. But, if we start to really think that way and think about whatever is happening in our lives, there's a lesson in it for us.
Mhm.
And in that, there's a platform that we have to ascend to. And the thing that we're most involved with right now is preparing us for that. So if we can stay the course mentally and think about that, we can overcome it.
Absolutely, and it cultivates. It's not surprising that you've accomplished the many things that you have, because that truly starts here, and it's like one level, another level, and another level. And I really wanted to share that because as I was reading your bio, it's so impressive, and therefore the journey is equally as impressive in terms of the magnitude of growth
Mhm.
necessary for this to happen. So, book is called High Heel Leadership. Okay, could you think of a more beautiful, fitting title? And I'm picturing you as the first time I saw you sashay into the room in Dubai, powerhouse, hot with those high heels. It's so fitting for who you are. What is high heel leadership?
High heel leadership is, I use the analogy of a high heel because we as women, we love them and men love to see us in them. They probably won't admit that, but it's true. So
Oh,
we love
we know
them
it's true.
and men love to see us in them, but you don't go from flats to 6 inches or flats to 5 inches overnight. That's a journey. You ascend to each inch of heel that you are able to master and wear. And that's synonymous with leadership for women particularly. It's a journey, it's a step by step. And as we go from one level of leadership to the next, it's an accomplishment no different than when you go from 1 inch to 2 inches to 3 inches. And I talk about that in this book. And heels for me represent struggle. They represent the beauty of the struggle. They represent the journey. And they also represent the shoulders of the women that I stand on who have come before me. And it's homage that I pay. And every single pair of heels that I own, they mean something to me. Shoes have to speak to me, and I consider them to be the voices of my ancestors. So I wear them proudly. And so that's where high heel leadership comes from. It's really homage that I'm paying to the women before me, and to be bold and be proud to walk in every inch of that shoe through your leadership journey.
I love it. And one of the things I got reading the book was it also represented um, a grace and a beauty and a caring of ourselves as women
Yeah.
in our leadership role. And I got a distinct feeling that what you were saying to us women is that we don't have to lose our femininity as we lead, but our femininity is our also part of our power in our leadership.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important for us now, particularly to redefine what leadership is. We've been taught that leadership looks a certain way, it behaves a certain way, and that it functions a certain way. And for us, we've often taken on some very masculine um, attributes,
Mm-hmm.
that was or is leadership. And absolutely, high heel leadership is about celebrating our femininity, being strong in that and proud in that, and know that being feminine in leadership offers skills and contributions that does not come naturally or easily for our counterpart. So this is about celebrating women in leadership and celebrating us as women, the thing that makes us women, and we should embrace that.
And you know, I know for myself, you know, as I was reading and as I was reflecting on my own leadership, that there's an aspect of my femininity, that natural compassion, that natural ability to empathize, my communication and how I communicate. So there's things that we do as women that that really enhance our leadership style. And I didn't really reflect on the extent it did until I started reading.
Absolutely. And it's a powerful thing to see women embrace themselves as women, and lead in that. It's a powerful thing to see. And my hope is that through High Heel Leadership, The Art of Being a Woman Empowered, this book is to encourage women to be more authentic in that space of being a woman, and for us to not beat each other up about it, because we are.
And we probably all experience that, where there's that I don't want to say cattiness, but it feels like it when it's happening.
Yeah.
And you speak to that really well in the book around how our self-worth and the work we do on ourselves really impacts our ability to make space for each other to lead.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I suspect a couple of things. One, that we don't celebrate our own accomplishments, and we don't have anyone celebrating us anyway. And that we don't have other strong women in leadership advocating for us. So we have to do more of that. We have to celebrate women more authentically, celebrate women more, and don't be selective about who you celebrate. Any woman who's doing really great things in their community and in their organization should be celebrated. And so do that authentically. And then in that, cheer for yourself. Every morning I wake up and I cheer for me, because you don't wait for someone else to do that. You have to cheer for you. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think for me, one of the biggest learns I've come to is really taking time to smell the roses of my success, and to do the happy dance of my success. And not just to plow forward, but just take the moment and really look at who I was required to become in all these different ways as I go to this place, right? Or I've achieved this. Define leadership, because we have a very similar definition. And I love the fact that you talked about not being title, not being positional. So can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, leadership is you. Leadership is exactly what you think it is. It represents you, and it's not about title, your name in a magazine, an award that you get. It's about how you show up every day, whether that be for your family, for yourself, for your organization. That's leadership. To walk out of the door in the environment that we're in, nationally, internationally, to walk out of the door and choose to do that, that's leadership. That's leadership. And so if you take that attitude and that mindset, that pure, because I woke up this morning and I chose to get out of the bed, get myself together and step out of the door, and you take that and then start to build and grow on that, the title, the position, the salary, that will come. The leadership, it starts with you and your mindset.
You know, I always remind myself that the first person I'm required to lead and influence is myself. And if I do that boldly, I will show up as a bright light.
Absolutely.
And people will say, there she is. And then it becomes this magnetic force where people begin to be attracted to you.
Yes.
There was I put it in the post as we prepared, because first of all, when I went online to order the book, there was this bold statement and I couldn't get past the statement. So I'm like, okay, I'm ordering this. So where is it that I have? What if I told you that the seat at that your seat at the table was always there? Can you expound on that? Because I was like, that's like a bold statement, but it's also a very profound statement.
Yeah. So I certainly didn't mean that in the physical form, because physical comes after the mental. It does, because it manifests into physical. I dressed the part, looked the part, thought the part from the very beginning of my career. I would have, as an administrative clerk one, which is where I started my career in public administration, anything anyone asked me, my answer was always, yes, I can do it. Didn't have a clue, didn't know how, probably didn't know what, but my mindset was, because they simply asked me if I could, I could.
Mm-hmm.
And so all I had to do was act on that. So my seat was at the table before the boardroom was in my view. I had that seat at the table, because if it came to me to ask me if I could, I could. So it was just a matter of time before my feet met the boardroom door and that I was able to sit at, actually take the physical seat at the table. But I had the mental seat at the table the entire time.
Well, you know what, I love this statement, and the reason it struck me was that oftentimes we look for permission. We look for someone to say it's okay for you to do this, or we look for the qualifications, the degrees, all those things that say yes, you can. And what you're saying is, if the ask is there, take it.
Absolutely.
If you think you can, step into it. And I'm always reminding myself that my leadership is a decision made by me, and it's my being able to say yes, 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 and I get it, even if I'm like, I have no clue what I'm doing, but yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It reminds me of my very first management position, and I had never I'd never done it. I remember going into that interview, and I nailed it, but it was just, I had no experience, but I looked at the job description and said, I can do that, or I can figure it out.
Absolutely. One of the things that I really want men and women to understand, that if you ever use the term, I'm just a secretary, or I'm just a whatever that is, I promise you that's all you will be, is just that. I don't care what position you sit, you have to realize that you're a leader, and that you can actually affect change no matter the position that you sit in, or that no matter the title that you have, you can affect change. And so I never said I'm just a administrative clerk one. I was touching things in terms of work. I was working on multi-million-dollar construction projects as an administrative clerk one, because I didn't see myself as my title. I saw myself as the change that I could affect.
That's good. So I want to really highlight this for everyone listening. Okay, so we're eliminating the I am just, and it's going to be straight I am. And if you're I aming something, claim something worth claiming. And I love the fact that you're saying, you know, it's almost like we have the opportunity by what we claim to just carve that path, right? Right. And you know, one of the things I got, one, when I met you, but also reading the book, that you are highly intentional.
Mhm.
Talk about the intentionality of leadership.
I consider myself, and I am, because I walk, breathe, talk service and being in service. Because if we're just leaders, when you don't feel like being a leader, when you don't feel like it, then guess what? You don't. But my leadership is as a result of servant leadership. And I know that everything that I do is affecting someone else. I don't lead for me, I lead for someone else. Um, and that's intentional because I have to, that's my focus. And I have to be intentional about my focus. I have to be intentional about my purpose. And I have to be intentional about how I show up as a leader. And because it's not for me, it's for everyone that I serve, whether that be my staff, whether that be my direct reports, whether that be the residents, the constituents that I serve. It's intentional to stay in connection and in contact with why you lead, why you, and that's my intent, and that's why it seems so intentional, because every day I remind myself, this isn't for you. Your leadership is not yours. It's for you to serve, and it's exhausting and it's tiring and oftentimes it's thankless, but for me it's fulfilling and rewarding.
You know, and it speaks to, you know, when you put your focus on someone else, or a group of people, and you take on that servant leadership, what often happens, I know from my experience, is what you want automatically kind of comes to you,
Yeah.
because it's almost like when I help enough people get what they want, I usually get what I want. I think that's the first thing that I'm really taking away from what you're saying. I think the other part of it is that, you know, one of the things about this type of leadership is it's also transformational,
Mm-hmm.
because when your focus is on who am I required to be to serve,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't keep you stagnant, because your reason for serving is always evolving. Your reason for serving is always expanding, and sometimes your reason becomes, you know, bigger than you. And one of the things I remember you saying in your book was that, you know, you talked about casting that vision and having it go beyond yourself
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to to
Yeah.
to serve others.
Yeah, absolutely. To help others realize a vision for themselves and realize a vision for their work. The one of the most rewarding experiences that I've had in my career is working with a team, a pretty young team, new team. And each year I do staff retreats, but they're for goal setting. So we set our annual goals from those retreats. And one year, the vision was Oprah-worthy content. Our exact words were Oprah-worthy content. This is marketing, new marketing team, but we wanted to produce programs and content that was Oprah-worthy. So I go back into the office after the retreat, and on everyone's office wall or cubicle wall, they have this sign, Oprah-worthy content. So they
Mm.
kept that there from those retreats. Now that's the vision. The vision is Oprah-worthy content, a vision that we came up with collectively, that this team came up with. Now, so we then that year built the first live stream morning talk show of any municipality, of the first time for that municipality, and then any municipality in Broward County built this morning
Wow.
show. The very first guest that we had on the show, this show had not aired yet. It was starting to air for the first episode, and it was Oprah Winfrey's Greenleaf. And one of the stars of her show, Lamont Rucker, was that show's very first guest. Now we went from vision setting together, saying Oprah worthy content, and had a star of one of Oprah Winfrey's shows on the Oprah Winfrey Network. That's what mindset and putting that out there, when you can have a unified vision, help others to see their vision, manifest that vision, because it's started right here.
I love it. And you know, as I'm listening to you, the other thing that's so clear as you're talking is that your type of leadership is not a follower leadership, but you're cultivating leaders. You're cultivating other people who, because you're building, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's what we have to do as leaders. Leaders isn't self-made. And we don't, others make us leaders, right? So anything that we're doing, we can't do that by ourselves. I couldn't have accomplished that by myself. I couldn't have built that radio station, or I couldn't have done any of the things that I've done in my career had it not been for others helping me. So it's people that create leaders. We don't create our own leadership. Others create that leadership for us. And so our job is to continue to lead with that type of integrity, because we know that someone and others helped us to get there. Lead with integrity, lead with intention, and to make sure that you're building others as you do so.
Yeah. So Natasha, what was, on your journey and throughout your career, you've seen many women, I'd imagine, that are have the potential to step into leadership, but don't. What do you think stops us?
Certainly comparing ourselves to, what we see or what we think we see anyway. Certainly fear.
Okay.
Fear of the unknown. And one thing that women do more than our counterpart is, if we can't check off every knowledge, skill, and ability that's listed on a job description for a position, if we can't check off every single box, we don't go for it.
Okay.
So we, 1, compare, 2, fear, and then 3, we hold ourselves to a standard that no one else is asking us to hold ourselves to. If we can't check off every box, we don't go for it. And that's a self-made standard that I think has hurt us.
Mm-hmm. And as you're talking, I have seen that for myself, and I've also seen the so now that I'm here, I've got to be superwoman and do it all, look like it's easy, don't ask for help, and work myself into like burnout.
Yeah.
And so what, and I know for myself, it was a worthiness piece. I had to work on my own right to sit at the table. I'd earned the position, I had the position, I was sitting at the table, but I was still felt like I got to prove myself my right to be there.
Ooh. Yeah. And that's certainly, I think that's universal. And what you just said, I think is so key, is that you had the education, you had the credentials, you had the experience, but what you didn't have was the mindset that you should be at the table. And even if you didn't have the credentials and you didn't have the education and you didn't have it, you still should have the mindset that I should be here. And so when we do get to the table, we're still thinking that we're not suitable, we're not worthy, we're not ready, because we haven't grasped mentally what we are substituting for education, credential, and
this is so powerful. So what do you recommend that women do? Because I think, I know I do mindset work, mindset mastery is what I do. And I'll see people who they've checked off every skill, They've checked out off every experience. They've checked out every degree. And you can see the frustration because they're like, something's missing. And you just nailed it. It's mindset. So what does someone do to get that? Because that's an EQ, you know, your emotional mastery, it's your emotional maturity. What do you recommend?
I first recommend to give yourself permission to give yourself permission to just accept that where you are. And, you know, I think we should just apologize to ourselves, first of all. Apologize to yourself and for putting that kind of pressure on yourself. Like just sit in that for a moment, and really check and see, why did you think you needed to go? Kudos for every woman, man who's sought their PhD. I think that that's an amazing thing. But if you got your PhD because you saw someone else in a position that you thought you wanted, and that's what you thought you would have to get there, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about thinking that we had to build all this stuff to get there because you saw someone else and that's what you thought you needed to do. And I think that right there is, you have to forgive yourself. That's what I was looking for when I was like, apologize, like forgive yourself for thinking that the package that you came wrapped in wasn't good enough.
Oh, girl, preach. Like that, I know for myself, I came to that realization probably 15 years ago. And I joke because I was always tired, right? The pressure of perfection, the pressure of showing up, looking impeccable, but that pressure was exhausting. And I remember when I finally got it and I made the shift, I probably slept for 2 weeks. and
I believe you, and that's not an exaggeration. I believe you.
Right. And I remember calling my mother going, I'm so tired. I'm so tired. And it was self-imposed. And the freedom that became available once I gave that up. And don't you find like it's almost like the doors bust open and you're moving and weaving and going places and doing things and fast tracking because I got out of my own way.
Yes. And that's the start. The start is getting out of our own way. And that's what I mean when I say redefine leadership. We have to redefine leadership and take off the barriers that we've placed on leadership and getting there, and the shackles that we've placed on ourselves, taking them off one shackle at a time based on whatever credential or education that we got. So that's when we say, okay, I can free my right hand now. I'm still shackled with my left, but I can free my right hand now because I got this credential or this education. And until we can release ourselves from that mindset and release ourselves from what we've always been taught leadership is, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, what I know that when I gave up my need to be perfect, I found greatness. I found like this continuous expansion and I think the thing was I was actually willing to fail. And in failure, there was so many lessons. And it was just like this, it was like I was failing quickly and picking things up and moving. And it's so freeing. Thank you so much for that point. I want to know, Natasha, as you look back and you've had a beautiful career and it sounds like it's just getting started, which is even more interesting. What did you wish you knew?
I wish I knew how fabulous I was or am even when no one knew who I was. Not that anyone does now, but certainly I was fabulous, even in my errors, even in my some of the choices that I made, even in my lowest points in life, I was fabulous.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting because oftentimes someone can look at us, like when you walked into the room, I was like, this is a force, right? And so someone can look at us and they can see how brilliant and bold and fabulous we are, and we're still struggling to see it.
Yeah. And I really think that that has a large part to do with how we behave with each other. I
Mm,
really do. And I want to stay on that for a moment, if I may, Suzanne,
absolutely.
because I don't think women understand the energy that we give to each other, positively or negatively. That energy resonates like no other energy.
Yeah.
And when, as a woman, you can't say to another woman, oh my God, you're fabulous. Regardless of what you're feeling about yourself, if you can't say that to another woman, but what you say is that, oh, she thinks she's all bad, or she's stuck up, or you need to calm down, it that right there sends waves through women like none other. It's like a tsunami.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if we don't get clear about how our synergies align, if we don't get clear about that, we won't be able to really affect the kind of change that we can make, particularly now in this climate. This is the time for women to really start to appreciate what we all bring to the table, because each one of us brings something different. And I want to say that if you can't see that or respect that, then the God you say you serve, somebody's lying. Somebody's lying, because God is almighty. God is ultimate. The way he blessed me, he blessed you. The gifts he gives to me, he gives you gifts as well. And so if we can't see that together, collectively, we can all be fabulous, and you not dog a woman because you think that she's more fabulous than you, somebody's lying.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think I know for myself, that is the emotional maturity. That's the mastery that we were talking about. And I know that when I have great compassion and admiration for myself, that's real, not the stuff we tell ourselves to just boost ourselves up, right? Because there's a difference, and you know that. So this is,
Mhm.
so when we actually can celebrate our own brilliance in a real way, celebrate our own gifts, talents, and treasures. I think it's when we're able to sit in that space that we're able to truly appreciate and honor another woman for her brilliance, her talents, her treasures, because it doesn't take away anything from me. It
Mhm.
actually adds to me. You know, for me, when I see you in all your brilliance, I'm just totally inspired. I'm like, oh, this is good. And I remember being told, when you look at another person, another woman, look to her to see what's brilliant about her that she can teach you.
Mm. Mm.
What is she modeling for you that you can take and say, I need a little bit of that to make me, you know,
Mm. Mhm.
more, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's not looking to tear down, but looking to see what's in her brilliance that you can say, I got to model something of that. That is beautiful,
And
right?
know, and knowing that, Susan, that woman who you're looking at and saying, what's in her that I could model, she's thinking the exact same thing about you. I promise you that. Suzanne, when I was sitting next to you and you were talking, you had this regal calmness that I say, because I'm really passionate about what I believe. And so some people think that that's combative, and some people think that that's aggression. No, that's passion. But the way that you speak, I looked at that and said, man, this is the way this woman speaks. It's like she can move a mountain with a simple whisper. And that to me I was intrigued by that.
Mm-hmm.
I was intrigued by that. So I want, in what you're saying is, for every woman that you're looking at and thinking that she has, what can you, wow, she's fabulous. She's thinking the same thing about you.
And, I love the fact, and first, thank you. And I love the fact that you brought it up, because I think what was beautiful about that room was there was that for everybody. Like we were, there was women and women, but there was predominantly women in the room. And you could see people just in admiration of the people in the room. And I think that elevated the whole process.
Yeah.
Because it creates a freedom, as you were talking about, if when we're able to give each other the freedom to be, we get more of each other. Because my defenses go down, my guard goes down, and I'm willing to bring all of me to the table. And I think that's what you're really sharing with the audience, is that when we give up judgment, we create the space for people to be their best self.
Oh God, that is so it. And if we met through Lethea is kind of who brought us together, and Lethea would do like this. Oh, something so profoundly said, and that right there was it for me. It was like amazing, because that's it. It's give ourselves, we can give each other permission to be vulnerable, and in that know that in that vulnerability is where we can get our the most learning done, and we can get the most in terms of the solutions and how we go to the next level. We can get it done when we are most vulnerable with each other.
Yeah. And we have, and it's that shared brain power, and that synergy that comes together. I was wanting to ask you this question as we wrap. We're in a time where leadership is essential.
Mm-hmm.
With all the things we see going on in the U.S. and I'm in Canada, but it's coming over here. I mean, we're all feeling it globally. What do you say is the role of women as we navigate all these issues related to race, power, privilege? What are your thoughts?
In the United States, women make up 57% of the workforce, 57%. And that's powerful, because what that says is that that's a backbone. If the workforce collapse, the country collapse, because women make up 57% of the workforce. So the strength of women and a woman's ability to bridge gaps,
mm-hmm.
build relationships, bring the type of awareness needed through empathy and compassion, because those are the two. That's what we're missing, is the empathy and compassion to take this world to the next level. Those are soft interpersonal skills that, one, is not appreciated enough, and two, do not come naturally to or does not come as easily to our counterpart. But because women have empathy and compassion and can mold that into building dynamic, high performance teams, and it can affect in a major way, can have an effect in a major way. And so the role that women have to play is stepping into the femininity, because it's through the femininity that the empathy and the compassion flows. And that's what's going to bridge the gap that we need to bridge now to take us to where we need to go.
I love it. So we need high heel leadership. That's what we need.
Question about it. And make sure those pumps working.
So now I'm thinking I have a different shoe for a different situation. Whatever game I need to bring, I got a different pair of shoes. And girl, when I put on my heels, I'm like you. I'm like, it's on.
That's right. Don't you feel different? They just make you look different. You just, it's a different type of feeling. It's
It,
power. It's power. And
it,
that's our power. And that's the one thing that we can, whether you're a woman who likes to wear high heels, or a man that likes to wear high heels, I say walk in them proudly, walk in them boldly, because it's power. And that's what we need right now. We need leaders with power, empathy, and compassion.
you know what? I so salute you. I so adore you. We have been sitting down with Natasha Hampton, the best-selling author
Mhm.
of High Heel Leadership. You got to sit down and read this book. I am devouring it, loving it, enjoying the insights, and I think also just enjoying your unique perspective from, your walk. Thank you so much. Thank
Thank
you so,
you.
so much. Where can people get your book?
So you can get my book on Amazon.com, BarnesandNobles.com, or NatashaHampton.com. So once again, that's Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, or NatashaHampton.com. You can follow me at High Heel Leadership on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And Intel Lady One, that's INTELLADY, and the number 1 on Facebook. On Twitter and Instagram, and Natasha Hampton on Facebook and LinkedIn.
We have been talking to best-selling author Natasha Hampton.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely follow this sister. Get
Mm-hmm.
the book, High Heel Leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And we definitely want to have you back. I want to hear, the journey, because I know the book just dropped a few weeks ago, already a bestseller. I want to hear what happens.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to see what happens. That's the great thing about leadership and our journey through leadership. We don't know where it's going to end, but I say let's just stop and smell the roses and enjoy the ride, enjoy the journey. So
Well, definitely come back.
I'd love to give away one of your books signed to one of your viewers this evening. If we could do that, I'd love to do that.
Absolutely. What we will do is we will give the book away to the person who asks the first person to ask a bold question to Natasha. We will make sure to get that question to her, and we will ensure that you get the book. So it's going to be, as our viewership, the first person to drop a question in the comment section, and a question that moves you, like something you really want to know, not one of those simple questions, something that is standing in the way of you stepping into the leadership you're capable of doing. It's one of those questions, and we'll make sure we get that to Natasha and allow her to answer that for you. Once again,
and thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate the opportunity, and I just simply adore you. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. The feeling is absolutely mutual, my dear. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.